Chair. No reportable action direction was provided.
Thank you. Now we'll have a roll call.
Thank you. Board Member Figueroa.
Present.
Board Member Bot Patel.
Here.
Board Member Becker. Board Member Nunez.
Present.
Board Member Spellich. Alternate Board Member Martinez. Chair Melendez.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Beautiful. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we will receive any board comments and announcements. And we will go to public comment.
We do not have any non-agenda public speakers.
All right, next we will move to the approval of the minutes.
I'll move approval. I'll second.
All right, motion in a second. Please vote.
Board Member Figueroa. Board Member Bot Patel.
I should clarify, do I need to abstain if I wasn't here, or if I read them, I can go ahead and vote?
If you read them and you're comfortable to vote, you may.
Okay, great. Aye.
Board Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Nunez.
Yes.
Board Member Spellich.
Aye.
Alternate Board Member Martinez.
Yes.
Chair Melendez.
Yes. And that approves the minutes. Now we will move on to our consent calendar. Do we have any public comment on consent calendar?
We do not have any public speakers on the consent calendar.
All right. I've reviewed the items. I'm prepared to approve. Do we have any discussion or requests? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve consent calendar.
So, second.
Thank you. Please vote.
Board Member Figueroa. Board Member Bot Patel.
Aye.
Board Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Nunez.
Yes.
Board Member Spellich.
Aye.
Alternate Board Member Martinez.
Yes.
Chair Melendez.
Yes. That moves us into reports with item 6, Clean Energy Alliance Chief Executive Officer Operational Report. Thank you, Greg Wade.
Thank you, Chair Melendez, members of the board, and welcome to alternate member Martinez. Good to have you here. This is the CEO report for this month. So just an update on the most recent enrollment. Happy to announce that pre-enrollment for all net energy metering customers in Vista and Oceanside is now complete. So those notices have gone out.
Excuse me, if I could just interrupt for a moment. Normally our monitors have, oh, I see. Go ahead and proceed. I'll
Good.
press it on my end.
So net energy metering, you'll often hear us refer to them as NEM customers. We've enrolled approximately 1,800 NEM customers per month since in the last 12 months during the enrollment period. And as I mentioned, those pre-enrollment notices have gone out to our last NEM customers. The statistics as of February 28th are shown there below, and you can see the number of opt-downs to the 50% renewable product, 313 total, opt-ups to 100%, 415, and the opt-out 6,800, just above 6,800 for a 93.5% participation rate for those last two member agencies that have joined CEA. Oops. This shows the enrollment by member agency and by product. Again, the three products are 50% renewable, and then our default product, Clean Impact Plus, which is 50% renewable and 25% carbon free. And then of course our Green Impact or 100% renewable product. You can see there the various breakdowns of the different categories. We've got a total of 711 customers at the Clean Impact product, 251,000, close to 252,000 in our default product, Clean Impact Plus, and 982 accounts in our 100% renewable Green Impact product. Just wanted to give you an update on our commercial BTM behind the meter, solar and battery requests for proposals. The program is designed to partner with a provider who will serve commercial and municipal customers, deploying both solar plus batteries and also standalone battery systems where applicable. This will, as many of our programs, enhance our peak load management, increase load resiliency and grid reliability, and obviously supports the overall grid health. That solicitation has gone out, and proposals are due to us by April 14th by 5 p.m. This shows the schedule for this behind-the-meter C&I. That's commercial and industrial solar generation plus battery storage. You can see the schedule there. As I mentioned, the RFP did go out this month, and we are expecting to bring forward a recommendation for a partner to the board in our May meeting. Happy to announce that our Green Impact Champions program is growing. As a matter of fact, it grew between the time we published the staff report and the time we're making this presentation by 1. So we've now got 8 active Green Impact Champions representing over 320 accounts. This is a program whereby we promote these partners on our CEA website with their logo and a website link. We make special social media announcements to recognize these businesses. And the program now, as I mentioned, is at 8 active champions and 320 plus accounts. And here are the logos of those. And I want to point out that Visit Carlsbad was our most recent addition. They have now become a Green Impact Champion. We are still active beginning this year in the community. Our staff has been engaging in many outreach efforts. We can see the 3 that we've done so far in this year listed here. We are approaching a very active month. It is Earth Day next month, so you can see the list of activities growing exponentially. Our staff is hard at work scheduling these. We are also making some presentations to various member agencies in the coming months. We'll be reaching out to you to schedule those. One of them is this month with the Carlsbad City Council's Legislative Committee on April 15th. And without going through all of these, that is a great list of events. One that I would highlight that I think a lot of people would enjoy if you're looking for something fun to do after our board meeting in April is the Graze at the Field events at the Carlsbad, at the Flower, I don't even know what to call it, the Flower Fields, and it's a really neat event. Many of our staff attended last year. Just a quick Solar Plus update. We have 14 active applications for in the ground, and the asterisk here is just indicating that we are still actively pursuing approval of our channel partners, which will expand the program greatly into a variety of different ways. And we now have 10 channel partners that are active in the program that will be going through the training. And what that means is we'll be able to reach a broader base of customers, Spanish speakers. We'll be able to service properties that have tile roofs, and also be able to offer other types of equipment beyond just the Tesla Powerwalls. So expanding the program to provide a variety of different options and choice for our customers. And that concludes the CEO report. One thing I also would like to just highlight that I didn't put in here or in the staff report is that as you authorized in the meeting in January, we are actively involved in the recruitment of staff. We have had quite a bit of really good response to those positions. Sadly, we had to increase that by 1 because we will be losing our clerk to the board and executive assistant, but she's been very engaged in the replacement. So happy to report that we're getting a lot of positive response from all of those recruitments.
Thank you for that CEO report. Are there any questions? None from the board, but I did want to ask, with all these upcoming Earth Day events and tabling events, if we would be able to get maybe just a note to the board members of when you might be in our cities. I know we like to attend these different events, and it's an opportunity for us to stop by the booth and make ourselves available so we can, say a quick hello to everybody.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Wonderful. And were there any public comments on this item?
We do not have any public speakers.
Thank you so much. And we will move on to new business with item 7, a regulatory update from Keys and Fox.
Actually, Chair, members of the board, Keys and Fox is not available today, and so we are going to have the presentation on our regulatory and legislative update given by our legislative analyst, Emily Fabick, who is here with us today.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? As Greg said, I'm Emily Fabick. I am CEA's regulatory analyst, and I am here in place of Keys and Fox this month to provide the regulatory update. Before I get started into the meat of the presentation, I wanted to kind of talk about the regulatory affairs umbrella. So it's more than just regulatory proceeding oversight. That is a huge piece of it, but there's also compliance tracking and filings and also legislative monitoring. So I wanted to take this opportunity this month to give you all an idea of what goes on behind the scenes under the regulatory affairs umbrella. So the first slide that I have is some of our compliance requirements that have been submitted already. Some of them are still in process for 2025. The first one is the supplier diversity report, and that is something that's due on March 1st of every year. And that is a CPUC report that gets submitted to promote transparency and accountability regarding procurement practices. It also tracks the progress in engaging diverse suppliers and highlights our efforts to support economic inclusion. So that is something that we are heavily involved in, and some of our staff has actually been to a supplier diversity expo that happens in October of every year for Southern California. So that's a really fun event. We have a table and we're able to talk to different suppliers and things like that, get our name out there. That's really exciting. The second report, it should look familiar. It is the LMS compliance report. I believe that's item number 3 on the consent agenda. That is something that's due to the California Energy Commission. So this is a CEC compliance requirement. This is a load flexibility report that essentially explains our time of use rates and real-time pricing information. This is something that encourages LSE's load-serving entities to provide these types of programs. And at this point, this draft report is a draft, and it's something that will be submitted to the CEC after this meeting on April 1st. And they will work with us over the next couple months to help us basically remain in compliance, see what we're missing with the compliance requirements and things like that. So, and that is something, just so everybody knows, back in 2023, our load serving entity exceeded 700 gigawatts an hour. And that's when a load serving entity becomes subject to these LMS compliance requirements. So that is the second one on my list. And then a current one that's happening right now is an AMI triannual audit. And this is an audit of internal privacy and data security policies. And in a nutshell, it just ensures protection of customer information. So that is something that's due on April 30th. So that is wrapping up at this point. And I believe in the next couple of months, I should be able to present the audit report to you all.
I have a question before we move on. This is new to me. So going back to, can you go back to the supplier diversity report? The second bullet, thank you, that tracks the progress in engaging diverse suppliers and highlights efforts to support economic inclusion. What does that mean? I'm not familiar. What does that look like? How are we tracking or?
Yeah, so what we do with that report is we actually send out a voluntary survey to all of our vendors, and they can report on things LGBTQ few women-owned businesses and things like that. And that's how we collect that data. That survey is completely voluntary, but this is a requirement from a CPUC decision, and it is a yearly requirement.
So can you help me then tie to the economic inclusion? So is this a self-reporting, or are we connecting with, like, for instance, some of our economic development stakeholders? I'm trying to think how that tracking, what it looks like.
If I could jump in here as well. So part of it is self-reporting. So we have a list of consultant partners, providers, suppliers, and we send this data request out and ask them for this information so that we can track the extent to which we are engaging with from an equitability standpoint with those partners. There is a challenge there. It's limited. Some people don't want to report, but others do, and we provide that information. The other thing we do is we make sure that our solicitations are broadly distributed to engage with communities of concern and other partners so that we can satisfy our objectives to include women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and the like in our efforts to procure energy, procure services, procure consultant services, those kinds of things. So it's a relatively new endeavor for us. You know, we started this last year, and so we're engaging with the PUC on this to make sure that we're doing whatever we can. The symposium or the conference that Emily mentioned, we all attended to get ideas about how to engage because this industry is there's a lot of I guess. Entrenched groups and consultants that provide these services, and so how to get beyond those and assist in getting more diversity in that spectrum of consultant services and suppliers.
And a follow-up to that, does that report come to this board? Where does it go?
It gets submitted to the CPUC.
Okay, but we don't get to see that, or how does that work?
Not at this time, but that's something I'm willing to take back. We can do that for next year.
Okay,
Certainly.
I for one would be interested in seeing what it looks like.
Yeah, there are also supplier diversity networking events that are advertised that we participate in as well, beyond the one that we talked about.
Thank you for this. This is very informative.
Thank you for those questions.
There's questions. Go ahead and move on. The next item may look familiar also from the board packet. It is the legislative and regulatory platform. This is the first time I'm updating this. The previous platform predated me at CEA. The one thing I wanted to make sure that everyone knows is that there are no major changes to our platform for 2025. The only main thing is that we did add an opening paragraph to the platform, just kind of highlighting the 2025 legislative priorities. And one thing I want to change going forward, I believe the previous platform said that we would approve and review this every January. And I'd actually like to move that to March of every year, which is why we're doing it this month, because that's pretty much the beginning of the legislative year. And I'm sure, as you all know, end of February is when most bills are introduced into session. So that's a good time for us to, reconvene and talk about some of our priorities for the upcoming legislative year. So that was pretty much the main thing that I wanted to outline for this platform. Now, one thing I will mention, we do have an RFP out for a legislative lobbyist. So I'm hoping to make this report and platform much more robust for the next year. So typically what Keys and Fox would do is go over some updates on proceedings of interest. I wanted to outline for the PCIA rulemaking that was recently released in February of this year. I just wanted to give everyone an update just on the operations piece of that and kind of the timeline of the proceeding.
Can I just jump in here? I'm sorry, Emily.
Okay.
PCIA is Power Charge Indifference Adjustment. It is the sometimes referred to as the exit fee. However, it's required for departing load from SDG&E's service, which we handle load that's departed, we serve that energy. It's to pay for contracts otherwise entered into on behalf of those customers by SDG&E. It's to essentially make them whole or the remaining bundled customers indifferent to the loss of those customers. So that's PCIA. You'll see there and I just wanted to, and then ERA is ERA forecast is an annual rulemaking where rate setting takes place for the IOUs, PG&E, SoCal Edison, NR's, SDG&E, and stands for, well, it's their Energy Resource Recovery Account.
Thank you for that. I know Tim from Keys and Fox has gone over that a few times, so I appreciate that overview. So as far as the proceeding goes, CalCCA has been filing comments on behalf of the CCAs. And because this proceeding is still very active and still ongoing, I'm not going to go too far into those comments at this time. We can do that at a later meeting once everything is submitted and we've had a chance to review other parties' comments. But for the most part, the focus is on affordability and customer fairness for both unbundled and bundled customers. And I also wanted to highlight that this proceeding has two tracks to it. So this will be ongoing for quite some time. But I did want to highlight that track one is going to be expedited because of that market price benchmark. And the market price benchmark, or referred to as the MPP, is a calculation to determine fair market value of energy resources. So that's something that the commission is going to expedite because you may be familiar with the October market price benchmark update that comes out from the CPUC every year. And they are going to expedite this process to allow for that methodology to be used for the October market price benchmark, which is something that has been presented to this board. And one last thing I just wanted to mention on this, the goal in mind is to ensure equitable cost and allocation among utility customers. So that is what CalCCA is really advocating for on behalf of the CCAs. And I also wanted to highlight that every CCA is having pretty much weekly meetings about this specific proceeding because it is so important.
And I just had one question on this item. I know Key and Fox typically review it in great detail. If they're not available at this time, would they be able to send us their current report for March?
I believe that report was in the board packet.
So, and there's nothing additional included that they weren't able to provide in a presentation?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And the last item I wanted to mention to you all is a recent resolution that was issued from Electric Safety and Reliability Branch of the CPUC regarding energy storage systems. And this was a resolution that was approved in March of this year that adopts General Order 167C. And that is essentially something that establishes maintenance and operation for energy storage systems and facilities and develops emergency plans in coordination with local authorities. So the new requirements that are introduced include safety incident reporting, the formulation of emergency plans, the requirements for audits, inspections, and investigations, and compliance updates and filings. And the significance of this is to ensure the higher safety standards for energy storage systems. So this is something that we'll be tracking closely as it proceeds because, as you may all be aware, there are a couple bills right now that are active in the legislature. I just wanted to highlight Senate Bill 280 and AB 303 for that reason. And just let you know that going on behind the scenes is a lot of monitoring and discussion between all of the CCAs about this bill. And we don't have any, specific updates on this at this time. It's pretty much just a monitoring as things go on. But I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention that this is active in our discussions at this point between the CCAs.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I had a question. So thank you so much for basically justifying your job. It sounds hard, all these deadlines and regulations and things you have to keep up with. So thank you for keeping us afloat. Are we basically in in line with the AB and SB? The numbers are gone now, but
Oh, yeah.
are we basically okay with those bills? Or are we fighting them or what? I mean, we would like to have, the safety protocols, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, if I could jump in there. So of the two bills, AB 303, that bill is concerning. While the objectives are certainly understandable, this is on the heels of the Moss Landing battery storage fire. The restrictions on energy storage writ large, large scale, 200 megawatts or more, which is utility scale, are concerning. However, Cal CCA has not taken an official position on this bill. We're working with the authors and seeing if there can be some revisions to the bill to make it more palatable in terms of highlighting the safety protocols that everybody supports, while also not compromising the ability to continue to develop energy storage as a utility scale need for our state. SB 283, that's a spot bill. So essentially it's sort of restating or re-emphasizing the requirements of the NFPA, National Fire Protection Authority 855, which are the standards you may recall for those at the last board meeting. NFPA 855 are the standards that are current and deal with fire protection for battery storage, and they have reporting requirements, they have hazard mitigation plan requirements, and so this bill is really just re-emphasizing and mandating as, for example, conditions of approval of a project that these compliance requirements are embedded in the project approval. And so that one, I think, is a little more on the less concerning than AB 303.
Right. So hopefully they're taking into account that battery storage is changing and becoming safer on its own. And so don't squash it before it can even, morph into a safer battery storage, I guess it would be.
Correct. That's a good way to couch the AB 303, is that the concern is this is just a broad brush bill that might do more harm than good for the battery storage industry, that we need to make 24/7 energy. Long duration storage is a requirement of the state, and to meet our long-term renewable energy goals. But the safety measures that it is trying to enact are things that Cal CCA and others are certainly supportive of in terms of monitoring that and requiring these projects comply with a higher standard for safety.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Yes.
I have a follow-up question. Are the bills assigned to committee already? Do we know, or is it too early? Yes.
It's a little too early. They're starting to get assigned right now, but these bills are, I think SB 283 has not been assigned to anything at this point, nor has AB 303, unless you have any current, yeah. It's starting to happen now, though. They're starting to go to committees.
Okay. I would appreciate it if you find out that they've been assigned, I would appreciate that. That would be helpful for me.
Thank you for following these updates.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on this item?
We do not have any public speakers on this item.
And this item was informational, and so thank you very much for your report. And now, if there are no further discussions, we will move on to item 8, which is a development framework, power purchase and energy storage agreements with Luminia.
Thank you. I'll just introduce Dan Beckham, our procurement manager, who's going to provide the report on this item. Dan.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, everyone, fair members of the board. And now, so this item is for approval of a series of agreements related to a portfolio of solar and storage projects. And our recommendation here is approving that series of agreements, which includes development framework agreements, 20-year power purchase agreements for solar energy, and 10-year battery storage service agreements with Luminia. It's listed as two separate project companies. One's for the solar projects, the other storage. So a little bit of background for why we're looking at projects like this. Local long-term agreements for new build renewable energy projects and storage projects are critical to CEA achieving our environmental goals, while also providing financial value to CEA by locking in power supply. And what that really means is over the past couple of years, we've seen and experienced acutely some of the volatility and the costs of renewable energy and resource adequacy capacity. By entering into these long-term agreements, not only are we bringing on new energy and battery capacity to the grid, but also we're locking in our cost and the price of that for the duration of these agreements. Specifically for local projects, there are additional benefits of these. We have a requirement with California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC, to procure local resource adequacy, essentially capacity to provide energy when the grid needs it most, and it needs to be specific to the San Diego Imperial Valley area. This is to provide grid services during times where the grid might be stressed, and also just in general, we've spoken about some of the benefits of battery storage when it's paired with solar to shift that to when it's needed most. So the projects that we're talking about here are ones that not only are providing solar and storage, but also are the intent is that they can help contribute to our local resource. To start looking at projects like this, we launched a RFQ to qualify local developers who would be able to then propose projects or portfolios of projects to CEA. This happened last year in spring. We've received a number of submissions under that. One was from Luminia, who got qualified under that process, and then proposed this portfolio project. On the next slide, but just maybe a little bit on that process. That was an RFQ, sort of balls and experience based, and Luminia is a San Diego local company that has developed projects across the state and nationally, focusing recently on working with commercial and industrial partners to utilize their resources, think rooftops or parking lots that are currently maybe underutilized to contribute to global transition. This one's a little louder, better. Maybe I was just too far off of that one.
That's great.
So like many developers who have been working on renewable energy development, both locally and nationally, Luminia started in solar and has transitioned into storage as the needs of the grids have evolved. And that's especially true here in the San Diego area with the amount of solar resources that we have and the need to shift those to the right periods of day. We have two members of the Luminia team here who I believe are available to answer questions afterwards. They have been and will continue to be critical to working with CEA in developing these projects. And specifically, we do have Luminia's battery storage senior advisor who previous to this spent 15 years with SDG&E working on their battery projects, going through the regulatory, commercial, and construction aspects of projects that are pretty much the exact size that we're talking about here. So a little bit more about the framework structure and the projects themselves. So the framework agreements for both the solar and the storage projects are essentially the mechanism that governs how our CEA's relationship with Luminia will function over the next about 6 months as the projects go through their initial sort of early development stages. During that period, it sort of governs the whole portfolio of each of both the solar and the storage projects. Once we reach October of this year, that's when each of those specific projects would have a specific power purchase agreement or energy storage and services agreement with CEA that all follow the same form as outlined in the board packet materials. So just speaking a little bit to the portfolios themselves, they're outlined on the map here. The yellow ones are the solar and the blue are the storage. They're generally in the broader San Diego County region with a significant number of the sites locally in our service area. including 4 in Oceanside, and I'm speaking to the solar projects, 4 in Oceanside, 1 in San Marcos, 6 in Vista, and the remainder in other parts of the county. Those solar projects total to 20 megawatts worth of power. And for context, our load often sits in their peak load kind of sits in the 250 to 400, 500 megawatt range. So it's substantial, but still many pieces of the puzzle to go after that. The storage projects are under 10-year storage services agreements. And those are a smaller set of projects. It's 4 sites, 2 in Vista, 1 in Forest Ranch, and 1 in Boulevard. That's the one in kind of the bottom corner of the map you see there. Finally, this slide did not move forward here. Okay, so finally, I did just want to speak a little bit to the battery storage, siting, and safety. I know that that's a key component that we've talked about at board meetings, and it's just important to CEA to site these properly as well. The siting for these sites is specifically looking at previously developed land primarily, and trying to focus on areas where we can have distance from higher priority uses, distance from residential areas, in particular focusing on commercial rooftops in the case of solar and parking lot space in the case of the storage. This image here is giving a sense of the scale of the types of projects we're talking about. For context, as it relates to Moss Landing or certain other local, really large scale utility projects that you may have heard about recently, this is about 1/100th of the size of those projects. So it's a lot smaller. Relating specifically to the safety aspects of it, as we heard at the last board meeting, there have been a lot of advances in battery storage safety measures over the course of time. These would be meeting all of the current requirements for the state and following the National Fire Protection Association level in terms of using containerized storage equipment. There's a variety of other requirements that are placed on projects that are built now, which weren't in place back when some of the ones that have been in the news, like Moss Landing, were originally built. And also these ones are going to be implemented closely coordinating with local fire departments and all require emergency response plans that meet California's requirements. And then the final bullet here is just that in addition to the initial design of the projects, they're continuously monitored both digitally and physically going to the sites as well. That concludes the set of slides I had. I'm available for
you.
questions as well as members of the project team.
Thank you for the presentation. I understand that we began the process at the last meeting to move forward with a partnership with Luminia. And I'd love to hear an introduction from the leadership if you would like to join us and just we welcome you and give us an opportunity to ask any questions that we might have and review. And we'll, of course, receive any questions from the board as well. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. My name is Jacqueline Fairbairn. I'm the VP of Corporate Development at Luminia. We are based in San Diego. We were established in 2019. We've been doing commercial and industrial renewable energy throughout California and New England. We focus on the built environment. We do community solar, and where we're really focused is trying to bring all of the impact and the benefits for renewable energy to the local community. So we really thank you for looking at our projects.
Thank you. And from the public comments, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not have any public
All
speakers.
right, so for the benefit of the board, we have a resolution to potentially approve. Do we have any questions for Luminia or to our staff? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I mean, this is what we've been looking for since the start of really, starting community choice energy programs is to have local programs, have microgrids, have, hire locally and all that. So you bring that to us and the long-term contract and all that. So thank you very much. And I would move approval, moving staff recommendation. Thank you. Councilmember? She can't.
I don't have any comments or questions, but I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Wonderful. We will vote.
Board Member Figueroa. Board Member Bot Patel.
Aye.
Board Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Nunez.
Yes.
Board Member Spellich.
Aye.
Alternate Board Member Martinez.
Yes.
Chair Melendez.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you very much. That is approved. Looking forward to it. And now we will move into item 9, which is to revise CEA retirement contribution to employees and employee handbook.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Before I start this item, I just wanted to let you know that our CFO, Andy Stern, is available to answer questions or step in if I misstate or misrepresent anything here, but I just wanted to go over this. We're looking for the board to approve a resolution number 2025-014, which would effectively increase each employee's 401A retirement from 5% contribution to 7.5% contribution beginning on April 1st of this year. Would note that the chief executive officer is not affected by that. It's a separate, those benefits are handled separately by contract. And then to authorize revisions to the CEA employee handbook to eliminate Social Security or FICA, Federal Insurance Compliance Act, tax participation by employees, except where required by law, of course, and to ratify and authorize CEA to file the documents necessary to take these actions. So getting into the background on this, the company currently contributes 5% of each employee's annual salary to a 401A retirement plan. And there's a vesting period of over 5 years. The opportunity also exists for employees to voluntarily contribute to a 457 deferred compensation retirement plan. And the company will similarly match that contribution up to 5% of the employee's annual salary. Participation in Social Security, in which CEA and each employee pays the Social Security taxes equal to 6.2% of the employee's wages, up to the Social Security wage total, which was $176,000 or is $100 in 2025, a total of 12.4%. So during recent discussions with our human resources and special counsel on tax policy, we were advised that the way we have our structured retirement benefits program, that we are essentially, all our employees are essentially exempt from payment of Social Security tax for our current employees. The regulations specifically state that if a total retirement contribution exceeds 7.5%, then those employees are exempt from the payment of Social Security tax. And as I mentioned, all our employees are currently above that threshold. For example, right now, the voluntary contribution of an employee, if they contributed 4% of their salary and we match that 4%, and the company contributes 5% to their 401A, that total is 13%, and of course, well above the 7.5%. So under this advisement, we took actions to stop the deductions of Social Security tax for the first quarter of 2025. We refunded the the deductions from last year, 2024, and the first 2 payments of 2025, and we have requested refund of the payments we've made to the federal government on behalf of our employees, and that process is underway and ongoing. So some of the implications of this proposal, so there is a possibility for an employee to potentially drop below that 7.5% threshold if the employee, for example, elected not to participate in the voluntary contribution, and all we were doing was matching or providing that 5% to their 401A. That would then trigger the necessity for that employee or those employees then withhold that Social Security deduction withholding and make those payments to the federal government. Of course, that would add administrative oversight for those employees as well as cost to administer that benefit program. Eliminating the Social Security participation would mean that we would now be contributing less for that employee's overall retirement benefit. And if, by virtue of eliminating the Social Security benefit, if you're not paying into the system, it's not a year of contribution. And so that ultimate Social Security benefit upon retirement would be decreased. So eliminating that as promised by our employee handbook would mean that the employee would be in effect suffering a potential decrease in post-retirement benefit. So our proposal therefore is to increase the 401A contribution from 5 to 7.5%. That would fix it for all employees. And that would mean that we would be exempt from the payment of Social Security. And that would be done, that 2.5% increase would be done in exchange for that loss of benefit on the Social Security side. And making sure that all employees would never fall below that 7.5% threshold would mean that we would not run afoul of any reporting requirements and would not have to monitor each employee to see how they're contributing or may not be contributing to their own retirement benefit. So the net fiscal impact of this approach would be that while we would be increasing the contribution to that 401A retirement plan by 2.5%, the elimination of the 6.2% contribution by the employee and by CEA would represent approximately a $40,000 annual benefit to CEA. We'd actually be saving $40,000 per year. The other details that I just wanted to highlight for you, as I mentioned, the chief executive benefit structure is different. We wouldn't, I as a CEO would not be affected by this impact. The FICA deductions, though, would have been withdrawn from the executive level payment because all employees are now exempt. Now, there is a possibility that some future employees, if, for example, we retained a part-time employee that was not subject to the same level of benefit, that they could at that time, we could at that time have to deduct Social Security payments from that employee. As a matter of operational sort of integrity and practice, it would not be my intent to do that. Simply to make sure that we're treating every employee the same. But I do want to highlight that that is a possibility for example, a part-time employee. So we're looking for the board to support this resolution 2025-014, which would increase the contribution to the 401A retirement plan for employees from 5 to 7.5% of the base salary beginning on April 1st, 2025, to revise our employee handbook to eliminate reference to Social Security participation and to ratify the actions we've already taken to this time and to for us to file any necessary documents to effectuate these actions. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Andy, if there's anything you want to contribute, please do at this point, and he's available as well.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Andy. Do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not have any public speakers on this item.
All righty. The way I see this item is largely a cleanup item. I'm glad that we had counsel to catch this issue. And I just, one question, I'm seeing 40K savings in modeling the benefits this way. But how much are we expecting to be returned that we've overpaid?
I think I would defer to Andy on that if you have an estimate at this point.
I don't have it off the top of my head, although I can get it in a minute. I'm pretty sure it was about $90,000 if I recall.
The employee. Andy, it looks like you might be on mute. You
can't hear me?
from you.
Okay, we can't hear you, Andy.
Well,
Must be
Let's-
our technical issue. If we don't have a answer on that at this time, then
There he
that's
goes.
fine.
can you hear me?
All right, we'll see if we can get Andy on for future questions. Are there any other questions and
So
discussions?
apparently others on the call can hear you, but let me see.
Just
So
not us here in the
the,
chambers.
the estimate right now is approximately $90,000 to answer
Okay.
your question.
Thank you. All right, any other comments, questions from the board? Yes.
Does that money return to the employees who have?
No, that
paid?
would
Can you hear me now?
fact for a part-time employee, pay Social Security for that employee. What I was suggesting is that from an operational standpoint, we would want to avoid that potentially. I mean, that isn't to say we would never hire a part-time employee, but we would have to be careful about making sure that we did the correct withholdings, not to run afoul of Social Security and FICA.
Now that we know how to do it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? No? All right, and I apologize, Andy.